The wallet appeared at my feet without warning, skidding across the rain-slicked pavement like it had been thrown there just for me. Black leather, expensive, the kind that costs more than my grandmother's monthly medication. I couldn't have been standing there more than 30 seconds, huddled under the bodega awning between my two shifts, exhausted and soaked. I bent down, fingers hovering over it. The leather was still warm. Someone just dropped this. I flipped it open and my breath caught. Cash, not 20s, not even 50s, hundreds, thick enough to choke on. Behind the bills, an ID caught the amber streetlight, Gerardo Trevisani. The photo showed a man in his 50s, sharp-featured, eyes like cut glass. Distinguished. Wealthy, obviously. And then I saw it, the embossed crest on the inside flap. Black and gold. A crown over crossed swords. Every instinct told me to drop it, to walk away, to not get involved. But I'd been raised better than that. Do the right thing, Angela. Even when it costs you. I pulled out my phone, water droplets scattering across the screen, and found the emergency contact card tucked in the bill fold for urgent matters. My finger hovered over the number. I just want to do the right thing, I whispered to no one, to the rain, to whatever God watches over stupid honest girls in this city. I pressed call. Before continuing the story, please consider giving this video a like, share it, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps bring more stories to you. The phone rang once. Twice. I stared at the screen, watching rainwater streak across the glass, distorting the numbers I'd just dialed. My thumb hovered over the red button. I could still hang up. Still walk away. Drop the wallet in a mailbox and let the postal service deal with Gerardo Trevisani and his expensive leather and his black and gold crest that looked like it belonged in a museum. 3 rings. My grandmother's voice echoed in my head. Do the right thing, Angela. Even when nobody's watching. Especially then. 4 rings. Then a click. Silence. Not empty silence, the kind filled with presence. Someone was there, breathing, controlled, and deliberate. Waiting for me to speak first. Hello. My voice came out smaller than I'd intended, swallowed by the rain hammering the bodega awning above me. I found a wallet. A Gerardo Trevisani's wallet? I'd like to return it. More silence. I could hear something in the background now, muffled voices, distant but urgent. The kind of conversation that stops when something more important interrupts it. Then a man's voice, close to the receiver but not speaking to me. Sir, there's a girl on the emergency line. Says she found your wallet. My stomach tightened. Emergency line? I looked down at the card again, the embossed text barely visible under the streetlight, for urgent matters. I thought it meant urgent like lost and found urgent. Not whatever this was. Another voice responded in the background, too low for me to make out words. But I caught the tone, sharp, questioning, suspicious. She's still on the line, the first man said. Then, clearer, directed at me but professional, detached, hold, please. I can just leave it somewhere, I said quickly. I don't need to hold. It wasn't a request. I pressed the phone harder against my ear, suddenly aware of how exposed I was. The street had emptied in the last 10 minutes. The bodega owner had pulled his security gate down early. He always did when the weather turned bad and the wrong kind of people started lingering. The only working streetlight flickered like it was considering giving up entirely. I should hang up. I should drop the wallet in the nearest trash can and run. Then a different voice came through the line and everything changed. What is your name? It was smooth, controlled, with an accent that shaped each word with precision. Not Italian exactly, but something that suggested old money, old power, old rules that people like me didn't know existed. Angela, I managed. Angela Matthew. I just saw the ID, and I wanted to return it. There's a lot of cash inside, and I thought you'd want. Where are you? Not thank you. Not how much cash. Not even how did you get this number. Just, where are you? I hesitated. Every true crime podcast I'd ever listened to during my overnight shifts screamed at me not to answer. But I'd already called. I'd already involved myself. Corner of 9th and Lexington, I said. Outside the bodega with the green awning. Stay there. I can meet you somewhere public or I can drop it at you. Will wait. His voice didn't rise, didn't sharpen. It simply stated fact. My driver will bring you to me. You have something of mine, Miss Matthew. I retrieve what is mine. The way he said mine made the wallet feel heavier in my hand. I'm just trying to help, I said, but the line was already dead. I stood there, phone still pressed to my ear, listening to nothing. The rain picked up, drumming harder against the awning, splashing up from the broken pavement. In my other hand, the wallet seemed to pulse with significance I hadn't noticed before. I flipped it open again, studying the ID more carefully. Gerardo Trevisani, 53. An address I didn't recognize, somewhere in the north part of the city where streets had names instead of numbers. In the photo, he looked distinguished. Powerful. The kind of man who didn't lose wallets. The kind of man whose wallets didn't just appear at the feet of tired 18-year-old girls between shifts. I heard the engine before I saw the headlights. Low, powerful, expensive. Not the rattle and wheeze of the buses and beat-up sedans that usually crawled through this neighborhood. The SUV turned the corner like it owned the street, black, windows tinted so dark they looked solid. It pulled up to the curb with precision, stopping exactly in front of me without hesitation, like the driver had known precisely where I'd be standing. The back door opened. A man stepped out, mid-40s, suit that probably cost more than 3 months of my rent. He didn't look at me immediately. Instead, his eyes swept the street with practiced efficiency, cataloging shadows and doorways and potential threats in seconds. Then his gaze landed on me. Miss Matthew. Not a question. A confirmation. I nodded, clutching the wallet against my chest like a shield. Mr. Trevisani is expecting you. He gestured toward the open door with one hand, the other resting near his hip in a way that suggested a weapon I couldn't see but knew was there. I looked at the car, at the darkness beyond the open door, at the man whose expression gave away nothing except that refusal wasn't really an option. I thought about my grandmother, asleep in our apartment 6 blocks away, unaware that her granddaughter was about to climb into a stranger's car. I thought about the $300 I still needed by Friday. About the right thing. Do the right thing, Angela. I took a breath and stepped off the curb. The interior smelled like leather and something else, cologne, expensive and subtle. The seats were cream-colored, pristine. I felt immediately aware of my wet clothes, my cheap sneakers, the way I didn't belong in a space this clean. The door closed with a solid, final sound. The man who'd opened it slid into the front passenger seat. The driver, older, silent, pulled away from the curb without a word. I sat in the back, alone, watching my neighborhood slide past the tinted windows like a film I was no longer part of. And in my lap, Gerardo Trevisani's wallet felt less like lost property and more like the first move in a game whose rules I didn't understand. The city I knew disappeared in stages. First, the bodegas and laundromats gave way to warehouses with broken windows and graffiti tags marking territory. Then the warehouses became industrial yards, chain-link fences topped with barbed wire stretching into darkness. Then even those fell away, replaced by something else entirely. Trees. Actual trees, lining both sides of the road like sentries. Not the struggling saplings the city planted in sidewalk cutouts, but old growth, thick-trunked, their branches forming tunnels overhead. Beyond them, I caught glimpses of stone walls, iron gates, properties that stretched back so far I couldn't see where they ended. This was where money built walls high enough to hide entire worlds. The driver took a turn onto a private road, unmarked except for a small brass placard embedded in stone. Trevisani. No address. No need for one, apparently. If you belonged here, you already knew where you were going. The road curved through manicured grounds, landscape lighting illuminating perfectly trimmed hedges and fountain sculptures that probably cost more than my grandmother's medical bills for the year. Everything was precise, controlled, intentional. Nothing here happened by accident. Then the manor appeared, and my breath caught despite myself. It rose from the darkness like something out of another era, stone and shadow, 3 stories of European architecture that didn't belong in the city, but existed anyway because money made its own rules. Warm light spilled from tall windows, but somehow the building still felt cold. Imposing. The kind of place where important decisions were made, where power lived and breathed and watched. The SUV stopped at the main entrance. Not at a curb. There was no curb. Just a circular drive of fitted stone, a massive wooden door, and two men in dark suits flanking it like bookends. The passenger door opened. The man who'd collected me gestured for me to exit. Inside. You'll be checked. I climbed out, clutching the wallet, suddenly aware of how small I looked against the scale of everything here. The door to the manor opened before we reached it, revealing a woman in professional attire, tailored pants, crisp white shirt, hair pulled back so tight it must have hurt. Her expression was neutral, but her eyes were sharp, cataloging me in an instant. Wet clothes, cheap sneakers, wrong neighborhood, wrong tax bracket, wrong everything. Arms out, she said without preamble. I'm just returning a arms out. I extended my arms, still holding the wallet in one hand. She patted me down with efficient, impersonal movements, checking pockets, running hands along my sides, my legs, even checking the seams of my worn jacket. The bag. I handed over my canvas bag. She dumped the contents onto a side table without ceremony, my work apron from the diner, a half-empty water bottle, chapstick, a protein bar I'd been saving for my break. She examined each item, then held out her hand. Phone. I need my phone. You'll get it back. Her hand didn't waver. I pulled out my phone, the screen cracked from when I dropped it last month, held together with a case that cost $3. She took it, then my keys, just two, apartment and mailbox, and dropped everything into a plastic bin like I was going through airport security. The wallet. That's what I came to return. I need to verify the contents. Something hot flared in my chest. I'd been patted down, had my belongings dumped and confiscated, been treated like a suspect instead of someone doing a favor. The exhaustion from my double shift, the cold rain still clinging to my clothes, the casual dismissal in everyone's eyes, it all crystallized into something sharp. No. The woman's eyebrow lifted. Behind me, I felt the presence of the men who'd driven me here, their attention sharpening. Excuse me. I found this wallet in the street. I called the number inside because I'm trying to return it to its owner. I've been patted down, searched, had my things taken, and driven to the middle of nowhere. I'm cold, I'm tired, and I'm doing Mr. Trevisani a favor. I held the wallet against my chest. So no, you don't get to verify the contents. He does. That's who I came to see. The silence that followed felt dangerous. The woman's expression didn't change, but something shifted in her posture. She studied me with new interest, like I'd just done something unexpected. Wait here, she said finally, then disappeared into the interior of the manor. I stood in the foyer, because that's what it was, not an entryway or a hallway but a foyer, all dark marble floors and a chandelier that probably required its own insurance policy. Everything reflected everything else, light, shadows, me looking small and drenched and defiant in the middle of luxury I'd only seen in movies. The men who'd driven me here took positions on either side of the door. Not threatening exactly, just present. Watching. I counted the crystals on the chandelier. Tried not to shiver. Wondered if I'd just made the stupidest decision of my life. Then I heard them. Footsteps. Measured, unhurried, the kind that made everyone in the room shift their weight and straighten their spines. The kind that announced arrival before the person appeared. He descended the main staircase like he owned every molecule of air in the building. Gerardo Trevisani in person was different from his ID photo, older, silver threading through dark hair, but more commanding somehow. He wore a dark suit without a tie, the top button of his shirt undone, like he'd been interrupted in the middle of something, but had decided this interruption was worth his time. His eyes found me immediately and held. Not assessing, exactly. Something more thorough than that. Something that felt like being read in a language I didn't speak. He stopped 3 steps from the bottom, giving himself the high ground, and I understood this was intentional. Everything this man did was intentional. Miss Matthew. His voice was the same as on the phone, smooth, accented, precise. You called my private line to return my property. Yes, sir. I found it outside a bodega on 9th Street. You didn't keep the cash. No, sir. You didn't try to negotiate a reward. No, I just wanted to. You came here alone, to a stranger's home, with no guarantee of safety or compensation. His head tilted slightly, like I was a puzzle he hadn't expected to encounter. And you just refused to let my head of security verify the wallet's contents. One of the men by the door shifted. The woman who'd searched me had reappeared at the top of the stairs, watching. I lifted my chin. You lost it. I found it. I'm returning it to you. Not to your security. To you. Something flickered across his face, surprise, maybe, or something close to it. Something that suggested people didn't usually speak to him this way. He descended the final 3 steps, closing the distance between us, and suddenly we were standing in the same pool of chandelier light. For the first time, he could see me clearly. And I could see him. His eyes dropped to my throat. To the locket. Everything changed. His hand moved before I could process the intention behind it, reaching toward my throat. I jerked back instinctively, but he didn't grab. His fingers stopped an inch from the locket, hovering there like touching it might burn him. Where did you get that? His voice had changed. Still controlled, but underneath something raw. Something that sounded almost like pain. It was my mother's. I wrapped my hand around the locket protectively, feeling the worn silver warm against my palm. Why? He didn't answer. Instead, he gestured sharply to someone behind me. More light. Here. Footsteps. A moment later, additional lamps flickered on, flooding the foyer with brightness that made me squint. When my eyes adjusted, Gerardo was closer, studying my face with an intensity that made my skin prickle. Look at me, he said quietly. I am looking at you. No. Look at me. Directly. I met his eyes, that cut glass gray that had seemed so cold in his ID photo. Up close, they were different. Sharper. Haunted by something I couldn't name. He drew in a breath. His jaw worked like he was trying to swallow words that refused to stay down. Isabella's eyes, he whispered. The name hit me like a physical blow. My mother's name. The name my grandmother only spoke in the dark, in quiet moments when she thought I was asleep. The name that lived in old photographs kept in a shoebox under her bed, photos of a woman with dark hair and a bright smile, holding a baby I barely recognized as myself. How do you know that name? My voice came out harder than I'd intended, defensive. How do you know my mother? He didn't answer. His attention had shifted back to the locket, and this time when he reached for it, I didn't pull away. His fingers brushed the tarnished silver, tracing the etched profile worn nearly smooth by decades of wear. A woman's silhouette, delicate and fading. This was hers, he said. Not a question. A statement of fact. I gave this to her. 20 years ago. That's not possible. My grandmother gave this to me when my mother died. She said it was a family heirloom, that it was. His thumb moved across the engraving with a familiarity that made my stomach drop. The Moretti family crest. Very old. Very rare. There were only 3 made. He looked up at me again, and I saw something in his expression that terrified me more than the guards or the mansion or the obvious power he wielded. I saw certainty. I gave one to Isabella when she turned 18. She promised she'd never take it off. The floor seemed to tilt under my feet. My mother worked at a hospital. She was a nurse. She didn't know people like you. Your mother, he said slowly, carefully, like each word was a stone he was placing in a wall, was Isabella Moretti. And before she became a nurse, before she left everything behind, she was part of this world. No. How old are you, Angela? The shift in question threw me. What? How old are you? 18. But I don't see what your birthday. When? February 14th. The date came out automatically, before I could question why he was asking. Why does that matter? Something cracked in his composure. His hand dropped from the locket to his side, curling into a fist. Behind him, the woman on the stairs had gone completely still. The guards by the door exchanged glances I couldn't interpret. Because, Gerardo said quietly, 18 years ago, Isabella left. Disappeared in the middle of the night without explanation, without goodbye. She left behind everything: her family, her name, her life. He paused, jaw working. And when she left, she was 3 months pregnant. The words landed like bullets, each one finding a target I didn't know was exposed. No, I said again, but my voice wavered. My mother left because she wanted a better life. She wanted to get away from, I stopped, the words my grandmother had used suddenly taking on new weight. She wanted to get away from dangerous people, from a dangerous life. Gerardo's hand rose again, slower this time, and tilted my face toward the light. Not roughly, almost gently, like I was something precious and breakable. You have her eyes, he murmured. Her cheekbones. Her stubborn chin. His thumb brushed across my jaw. You even stand like her, shoulders back, even when you're terrified. Even when you should run. I wanted to pull away. Wanted to tell him he was wrong, that this was insane, that I was just a girl who found a wallet and made a phone call. But the way he looked at me, like he was seeing a ghost, like I was an answer to a question he'd been asking for 18 years, made the protests die in my throat. What are you saying? I whispered. He stepped back, but his eyes never left my face. I'm saying that wallet didn't find you by accident. I'm saying that you calling that number, coming here, standing in this foyer wearing Isabella's locket, none of this is coincidence. You're not making sense. Your mother took something when she left. Something I've been searching for ever since. His voice dropped, heavy with meaning. She took you. The chandelier light seemed too bright suddenly. The foyer too small. My lungs couldn't find enough air. She took you, he repeated, and she hid you. Protected you. Kept you away from all of this. He gestured at the mansion around us, but I understood he meant something larger. Something darker. But now you're here. Now you've found your way back. And that means, guards. His voice sharpened, projecting authority that made everyone in the room snap to attention. Secure the estate. Full lockdown. No one enters, no one leaves without my direct authorization. Wait, what are you? He looked at me again, and I saw it clearly now. Not just recognition. Protection. Possession. You're not going home tonight, Angela. Not until I know you're safe. Not until I understand who else might know what you are. He moved toward the stairs, then paused. You came here to return what was mine. But you are what I've been looking for. And I protect what's mine. The doors closed somewhere in the distance. Locks engaged with heavy, final sounds. And the wallet in my hands, the one I'd found by accident, the one I'd just wanted to return, felt like the least important thing in the world. What would you do if you discovered your entire life was built on secrets someone died to protect? Drop your thoughts below, I'd love to hear them. I didn't sleep. How could I, in a room larger than my entire apartment, with sheets that probably cost more than my monthly wages, surrounded by silence so complete it felt like being buried alive. The bedroom they'd given me was on the 3rd floor, east wing, overlooking gardens I couldn't see in the darkness, but knew were there because everything here was designed to impress. Heavy curtains. Antique furniture. A bathroom with heated floors and a shower that had more settings than my grandmother's television. I sat on the edge of the bed, still wearing my damp clothes because the idea of putting on the silk pajamas someone had left folded on the dresser felt like acceptance. Like I was staying. At 3 a.m., I tried the door. Locked from the outside. At 4 a.m., I checked the windows. 3 stories up, no ledge, no trellis, nothing but a straight drop to manicured grass that would break more than my pride. At 5 a.m., the lock clicked open. Gerardo stood in the doorway, still wearing the same suit from last night, looking like he hadn't slept either. Behind him, a woman I didn't recognize carried a breakfast tray, coffee, fruit, pastries that smelled like they'd been baked minutes ago. We need to talk, he said. You locked me in. For your protection. That's kidnapping. That's precaution. He stepped inside, gesturing for the woman to leave the tray and go. Once we were alone, he closed the door but didn't lock it. A small concession that felt like a test. Sit. I'd rather stand. His mouth twitched. Not quite a smile, but close. You really do have her stubbornness. I wrapped my arms around myself, suddenly aware of how exhausted I was, how my defenses were crumbling under the weight of too many revelations and not enough sleep. You can't keep me here. I can. And I will. Until I'm certain you're safe. Safe from what? He moved to the window, pulling back the curtain to reveal the first gray light of dawn. The wallet you found wasn't lost, Angela. It was planted. My stomach dropped. What? I never carry that particular wallet outside the estate. It lives in my study, in a locked drawer, and only 3 people have access to that room. He turned back to me. Someone took it. Someone placed it exactly where you would find it. And someone made sure you'd call that number. That's insane. Why would anyone to see what you do? To confirm what you are? His eyes locked on mine. My enemies don't move without information. Whoever did this wanted proof that Isabella's daughter exists. That you're here, in the city, vulnerable. The word hung in the air like a threat. I'm not vulnerable. I'm just a girl who works 2 jobs, lives in a 4th-floor walk-up with inadequate security, and takes the same route home every night at 11 p.m. He said it without looking at notes, without hesitation. You're predictable, Angela. And predictable means easy to find. Easy to use. Ice crawled down my spine. How do you know my schedule? Because I had you researched the moment you hung up the phone last night. Before my driver even picked you up, I knew where you lived, where you worked, who you lived with. He paused. I know about your grandmother. About her medical bills. About the $300 you're short for Friday's rent. Anger flared hot and sharp. You have no right, I have every right. You're connected to me now, whether you want to be or not. And that connection makes you a target. For what? I don't know anything about your business, about whatever world my mother left behind. I'm nobody. You're Isabella's daughter. He said it like that explained everything. Your leverage. And in my world, leverage is currency. I sank onto the edge of the bed, legs suddenly unable to hold me. This is insane. This is reality. He crossed the room, crouching in front of me so we were eye level. I'm going to protect you, Angela. But I need you to trust me. Trust you? You locked me in a room. I secured you in a room. There's a difference. His expression softened slightly. And it's not just you I'm concerned about. My head snapped up. What does that mean? Your grandmother. Sophia Matthew, 71, retired postal worker, recently diagnosed with stage 2 diabetes requiring medication she can barely afford. He held my gaze. She lives alone 6 blocks from you, ground floor apartment, broken lock on the back window that the landlord still hasn't fixed. Terror seized my chest. If you touch her, I'm not going to touch her. I'm going to protect her. But only if you cooperate. Cooperate how? You and your grandmother move into the estate. Full security. Medical care. Everything you need. She'll never agree to that. Then you'll convince her. He stood, straightening his jacket. My people are already at her apartment. They're explaining the situation. I shot to my feet. You sent people to her house? She's going to be terrified. She's going to be safe. And so are you. Those are the only things that matter right now. You can't just, I can. I have. And unless you want to put both of your lives at risk, you'll accept it. He moved toward the door, then paused. Your mother ran because she thought distance would protect you. She was wrong. The only thing that protects people in this world is power. And right now, I have it. You don't. So what am I? A prisoner. Your family. The word landed heavy between us. And family stays close. Family stays protected. Family survives. I'm not your family. He looked at me for a long moment, something complicated moving behind his eyes. Your mother was the only person I ever trusted completely. The only person who saw what I could become and didn't run. His voice dropped. When she left, she took part of me with her. And whether you believe it or not, whether you accept it or not, you're what remains of that. The door opened. The woman who'd searched me last night appeared, her expression neutral. Sir, the grandmother has arrived. She's asking for Angela. My heart lurched. She's here? Now. Waiting in the south parlor, Gerardo said. You can see her, reassure her you're safe. But Angela, he caught my arm gently as I moved past him. Don't try to leave. Don't ask her to run. Because if you walk out of this estate unprotected, you won't make it 3 blocks before someone finds you. You don't know that. Yes, he said quietly, I do. Because I've already identified 2 vehicles watching your grandmother's building. Because someone followed my driver last night. Because the wallet wasn't the only message my enemies sent. He released my arm. They know who you are now. And they're waiting to see what I'll do about it. I pulled away, heading for the door. This is insane. This is survival, he called after me. And you're going to have to decide which matters more, your freedom or your life. I didn't answer. I just ran down the hallway, following the woman toward wherever they were keeping my grandmother, praying she was okay, praying this was all some elaborate nightmare I'd wake from. But the estate was solid around me. The guards were real. And somewhere in the gardens I couldn't see, people I'd never met were watching, waiting, calculating what I was worth. 3 days in the estate, and I still felt like I was living in someone else's life. My grandmother had settled into her suite with suspicious ease, won over by the promise of proper medical care and a kitchen staff that didn't make her cook her own meals. She'd taken one look at the security, the grounds, the way people deferred to Gerardo, and whispered to me, "Your mother would have hated this." But she would have understood. I wasn't sure I understood anything. On the 4th morning, Gerardo found me in the library, a room so vast it required a rolling ladder to reach the upper shelves. I'd been avoiding him, taking meals in my room, exploring the estate's edges like a prisoner mapping her cell. "You can't hide forever," he said from the doorway. "I'm not hiding. I'm reading. You're holding a book. There's a difference." He crossed the room, suit perfectly pressed despite the early hour. "Come with me." "Where?" "To work." I closed the book. "I have work. 2 jobs, actually. That I'm not showing up for because you have me locked in here." Had. Past tense. I bought both establishments and installed managers who understand you're on extended leave. He said it casually, like purchasing a diner and a convenience store was equivalent to picking up groceries. "Your positions are secure. Your income continues. Now come." He didn't wait for agreement, just turned and walked out, clearly expecting me to follow. I did. Hating that I did. Hating that curiosity outweighed resentment. He led me through corridors I hadn't explored, down a flight of stairs, past 2 guards who stepped aside without question, into a wing of the estate that felt different. More utilitarian. Less showpiece, more operation. We entered a room dominated by a massive table, screens built into the walls displaying what looked like security feeds, financial data, shipping manifests. 6 people stood around the table, 4 men, 2 women, all dressed like they meant business. They fell silent when Gerardo entered. "Continue," he said, gesturing for me to take a seat against the wall. Not at the table. Not part of the conversation. Just observing. A man in his 40s resumed speaking, referencing numbers I didn't understand, territories I'd never heard of, names that meant nothing to me. But I watched. Watched the way Gerardo listened without interrupting. The way his eyes tracked each speaker. The way the others deferred to him with a respect that bordered on fear. This was power. Real power. The kind that didn't need to announce itself. After 20 minutes, a woman presented a proposal, something about expanding operations into the port district. She had charts, projections, everything meticulously prepared. Gerardo let her finish. Then, "No. Sir, the profit margins, the margins are attractive. The risk is unacceptable." He leaned forward slightly. "You're not accounting for the Russo family's claim on those warehouses. They've held that territory for 15 years. You move in, they respond. And right now, I don't need that conflict." The woman nodded, but I saw it in her eyes, disappointment masked as acceptance. She was lying. She thought the risk was worth it and was already planning how to present it differently next time. I almost said something. Almost pointed out what I'd seen. But I was just the girl in the corner. The unexpected daughter. The obligation. The meeting continued. Each presentation, each decision, I watched not just Gerardo but everyone else. The way they shifted weight when lying. The slight pause before answering when they weren't certain. The glances they exchanged when they disagreed but wouldn't say so aloud. After an hour, Gerardo dismissed them. Everyone filed out except the woman who'd presented the port proposal. She lingered near the door. "We'll revisit this in 3 months," Gerardo told her. "When circumstances change." "Of course, sir. Thank you." She left, but her smile didn't reach her eyes. The door closed. Gerardo turned to me. "What did you see?" The question caught me off guard. "What?" "You watched for an hour. What did you see?" I hesitated. "I saw a meeting. People presenting ideas. You making decisions. Try again. He leaned against the table, arms crossed. What did you actually see? I met his gaze, trying to determine if this was a test. I saw that woman, the one with the port proposal. She didn't accept your no. She's going to try again, probably through someone else. His eyebrow lifted. How do you know? The way she looked at the others when you dismissed the idea. Like she was calculating who might be more sympathetic. And the way she lingered, she wasn't thanking you. She was buying time to adjust her strategy. What else? The older man who reported on the downtown properties? He's skimming. Not much, but enough that he got nervous when you asked about the maintenance costs. His numbers were too round, too perfect. Real expenses aren't that clean. Gerardo's expression didn't change, but something shifted in his posture. Continue. The younger guy who talked about shipping schedules, he's sleeping with the woman who handles your legal contracts. They haven't told you because they think it's a liability. And the man with the gray tie is worried about his daughter. He checked his phone 4 times under the table, always with the same expression. Silence filled the room. Gerardo studied me like I'd just revealed something he'd suspected but couldn't confirm. Your mother had that gift, he said quietly. Reading people. Understanding what they wanted before they said it. It made her invaluable. He paused. It also made her dangerous. I'm not dangerous. I'm just observant. In this world, they're the same thing. He moved closer. Everyone in that room has worked for me for years. They're skilled at deception, at hiding motivation, at playing roles. And you saw through all of them in an hour. Lucky guesses. There's no such thing as luck. Only preparation and instinct. He gestured toward the door. You have the instinct. Now you need the preparation. I don't want to learn this. I don't want to be part of you already are. The moment you put on that locket, the moment you walked through my gates, you became part of this. His voice wasn't unkind, just factual. The question isn't whether you're involved. It's whether you'll be effective or vulnerable. I stood, anger flaring. I didn't ask for this. Neither did I, but we don't choose our blood, Angela. We only choose what we do with it. Over the next week, Gerardo brought me to every meeting. Made me watch. Made me report what I saw. And every time, I saw more. The subtle betrayals, the hidden agendas, the fear and ambition that drove everyone in his orbit. I hated that I was good at it. Hated that some part of me came alive in that room, reading the currents of power like they were written in a language I'd always known but never spoken. On the 8th day, after a particularly tense negotiation with a supplier who'd been watering down product, Gerardo dismissed everyone but me. You saw he was lying about the quality, he asked. He was lying about everything. The quality, the quantities, even his supplier's identity. And you know this how? Because he touched his wedding ring every time he lied. A tell. Probably doesn't even know he does it. Gerardo smiled. Actually smiled. Your mother used to say that people betray themselves in small ways. Little confessions they don't mean to make. Is that why she left? Because she could see what you really were. The smile faded. She left because she saw what I was becoming. And she knew our child deserved better. The word hung between us, unspoken confirmation of what I'd suspected, but he'd never stated directly. So what does that make me? I asked. Your daughter? Your weapon? Your weakness? He considered the question with unsettling seriousness. That depends on what you choose to become. If you inherited a dangerous gift, would you use it to survive or fight to stay who you were? Subscribe for what happens next. The study was off limits. Gerardo had never said it explicitly, but I understood the hierarchy of doors in the estate, the ones that opened freely, the ones that required permission, and the one at the end of the second-floor hallway that remained perpetually closed. Until tonight. I'd been restless for hours, pacing my room like a caged animal, replaying everything I'd learned in those meetings. The way Gerardo watched me. The way he spoke about my mother in fragments, like her name still cut his tongue. The way my grandmother had looked at him that first day with something that wasn't quite fear, but close recognition, maybe. Understanding. At midnight, I gave up on sleep and wandered the halls. The estate breathed differently at night, all creaking wood and settling stone, the guards' footsteps echoing from distant corridors. I found myself outside the study without consciously deciding to go there. The door stood ajar. Just an inch. Just enough to be an invitation or a test. I pressed it open slowly, wincing at the whisper of hinges. Moonlight spilled through floor-to-ceiling windows, illuminating a room that felt more personal than anything else I'd seen in this museum of wealth. A massive desk dominated the space, but it was the walls that caught my attention, floor-to-ceiling shelves lined with leather-bound books, framed photographs, and objects that looked like they carried stories. I stepped inside, pulling the door nearly closed behind me. The first photograph I noticed sat on the desk in a silver frame, a young woman laughing, head thrown back, dark hair catching sunlight. She wore a summer dress and the locket, my locket, gleaming against her throat. My mother. Younger than I'd ever seen her, radiant in a way the hospital photos from my childhood had never captured. My fingers trembled as I picked up the frame. Behind her in the photo, blurred but recognizable, was a younger Gerardo, watching her with an expression that made my chest ache. Devotion. Pure, unguarded devotion. I set it down carefully and turned to the shelves. More photographs, chronologically arranged like a timeline of a life I'd never known existed. My mother at what looked like a charity gala, wearing diamonds and a smile that seemed genuine. My mother and Gerardo on a yacht, his arm around her waist, both of them squinting into the sun. My mother in what appeared to be this very study, curled in the leather chair by the window, reading a book, unaware she was being photographed. Then the timeline shifted. My mother pregnant, glowing, one hand resting on her swollen belly. Gerardo kneeling beside her, ear pressed to her stomach, face soft with wonder. The date written in the corner, 6 months before I was born. My breath caught. More photos followed, but these were different, candid shots taken from a distance, grainier, like surveillance footage printed on photo paper. My mother leaving a hospital in scrubs, hair pulled back, looking tired and older. A different city, different clothes, but unmistakably her. The date, 2 years after I was born. Another photo, my mother pushing a stroller through a park I recognized from my childhood in Philadelphia. I could see myself, maybe 3 years old, reaching for pigeons. She looked over her shoulder in the shot, like she sensed she was being watched. She was being watched. He'd been tracking us. For years. I moved along the shelf, my heart pounding harder with each image. Me starting kindergarten, my mother's hand in mine. Me at a birthday party, frosting smeared across my face. Me graduating 8th grade, awkward and gap-toothed in a borrowed dress. He had cataloged my entire childhood from the shadows. At the end of the shelf sat a wooden box, dark mahogany with brass corners. I lifted the lid with shaking hands. Inside were documents. Birth certificates, mine, with my mother's name, but the father line left blank. Hospital records. School enrollment forms. Every official piece of paper that proved I existed, all collected, all filed with meticulous care. Beneath the documents, a stack of letters bound with string. I pulled one free, immediately recognizing my mother's handwriting on the envelope. It was addressed to Gerardo, but had never been opened, the seal still intact. There were dozens of them. All sealed. All unread. At the bottom of the box lay a single letter in different handwriting, his handwriting. Not in an envelope, just folded once, the creases worn like it had been opened and reread countless times. I unfolded it. Isabella, I've hired 12 investigators in 8 years. They've found you 4 times. Each time, I've called them off. Each time, I've let you disappear again because you asked me to. Because your letter said our daughter deserves sunlight, not shadows. But I need you to know I never stopped looking. I never will. Not to bring you back. Not to punish you for leaving. Just to know you're both safe. That she's growing up protected. That the life you chose for her is better than the one I could have given. I see her school photos when the investigators send reports. She has your eyes. Your smile. I see the way you hold her hand in every photograph. The way you look at her like she's your entire world. You gave her what I never could, a normal life. A chance. I won't interfere. I won't show up on your doorstep. I won't shatter the peace you've built. But I keep every photograph. I mark every birthday on my calendar. And I make sure no one from my world ever gets close enough to threaten hers. That's my promise to you. The only one I can keep. If something happens to me, there's an account in her name. Enough to make sure she never struggles. Enough to give her choices. The details are with my attorney. I love you both. I always will. That's why I let you go. Gee, the letters slipped from my fingers. Behind me, the door opened fully. I didn't need to turn around to know who stood there. She never told you. Gerardo's voice was quiet, carrying none of its usual authority. About me. About any of this. I turned slowly. He stood in the doorway, still wearing the same clothes from dinner, like he hadn't slept either. Like maybe he never really slept. You've been watching us my whole life. Protecting you. There's a difference. You had investigators follow a child. I had professionals ensure no one dangerous got close to you. That the men I'd betrayed, the families I'd destroyed building this empire, never connected you to me. He stepped into the room. Your mother thought disappearing would keep you safe. She was half right. Distance helped. But it was my surveillance that made sure distance was enough. I gestured at the photographs. This is obsession. This is fatherhood from the only distance your mother would allow. He moved to the shelf, touching one of the frames, me at 7, missing my front teeth, holding up a spelling bee trophy. She sent me one letter after she left. One. It said if I ever loved her, I'd let you both go. So I did. But I never stopped ensuring you had everything you needed. The money. The account you mentioned. Funded the month you were born. Grows annually. Managed by trustees who don't know my name. He looked at me. Your mother's hospital bills when she got sick, mysteriously reduced. Your grandmother's rent when she fell behind, anonymous benefactor. Your scholarship to the private school for sophomore year that you turned down, real scholarship, but I made sure you qualified. The room tilted. Every break we'd caught, every miracle that had kept us afloat, you've been pulling strings my entire life. I've been your father your entire life. I just did it from the shadows because that's what she asked. His jaw tightened. And then she died. And I couldn't anymore. Couldn't stay away. Couldn't trust that you'd be safe without me close enough to see the threats coming. So you planted the wallet. His silence was confirmation. You manipulated me into coming here. I gave you a choice. You could have kept the money. Could have thrown the wallet away. You chose honesty. You chose to come. He moved closer. I spent 18 years keeping you safe from a distance. But my enemies are getting bolder, smarter. They've started asking questions about Isabella. About whether she left anything behind. I needed you here, where I could protect you properly. Or control me. If I wanted control, Angela, you'd never have found this room. Never have seen these photographs. Never have read that letter. He gestured at the evidence of his 18-year vigil. I want you to understand. Your mother left to save you. And I've spent every day since making sure her sacrifice meant something. I looked at the photographs again, my whole childhood watched, documented, protected from the shadows by a man I'd never known existed. She died hating you, I whispered. No. His voice cracked just slightly. She died loving me. That's why she never came back. The man's name was Vincent Calabrese, and he'd been Gerardo's right hand for 15 years. I'd seen him in every meeting, always 2 steps behind the boss, always watching, always calculating. He had silver hair, expensive suits, and the kind of face that gave away nothing, a useful trait in a world built on secrets. I didn't like him. Couldn't say why exactly. Just instinct. The same instinct that let me read the others in those conference rooms. He smiled too much when Gerardo wasn't looking. It was day 12 in the estate when I noticed Vincent watching me differently. I'd been crossing the main hall toward the library, and he'd been standing near the entrance with 2 other men, discussing something in low tones. When I passed, the conversation stopped. I felt his eyes track me like a predator marking prey. That night at dinner, Gerardo was called away mid-meal, something about a shipment at the docks requiring immediate attention. Vincent appeared in the doorway to deliver the message, his expression apologetic but his eyes sharp. My apologies for the interruption, Miss Matthew. Your father will return shortly. The way he said your father felt like a test. Like he was trying on the words to see how they fit, how much power they carried. After Gerardo left, Vincent lingered. You're adjusting well, he said, pouring himself a glass of wine from the sideboard uninvited. Not many people walk into this life and adapt so quickly. I set down my fork. I'm not adapting. I'm surviving. Semantics. He swirled the wine, studying the color against the light. You've become quite important to him. In just under 2 weeks, you've shifted his entire focus. There was something in his tone, not quite accusation, but close. I didn't ask for any of this. No, but you're benefiting from it nonetheless. Protection. Resources. Access to a world most people would kill for. He took a sip, watching me over the rim of the glass. Tell me, Angela, do you think you're making him stronger or weaker? The question landed like a slap. I think that's none of your business. His smile widened. Everything that affects Gerardo Trevisani is my business. I've kept him alive for 15 years. I've cleaned up his mistakes, eliminated his threats, and ensured his empire remains untouchable. And now I watch him rearrange his entire operation around a girl he didn't know existed 3 weeks ago. Then maybe you should talk to him about it. Oh, I have. Vincent set down the glass with deliberate care. He's told me your family. That you're under his protection. That anyone who threatens you answers to him personally. He paused. Do you know what that makes you? I stood, done with this conversation. It makes me his daughter. It makes you a weakness. The words hung in the air between us, sharp and cold. Men like Gerardo don't have the luxury of weakness. They can't afford sentiment, can't afford distraction. The moment they do, the wolves start circling. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. And there are a lot of wolves, Angela. Families who've been waiting years for an opening, for proof that the Iron King has a soft spot. Then they'll be disappointed. Will they? His eyes held mine. He canceled 3 critical meetings this week to have lunch with you. He's diverted security resources to guard a grandmother in the East Wing who contributes nothing to operations. He's making decisions based on emotion instead of strategy. Vincent's expression hardened. That's not the man I've served for 15 years. That's a man compromised. I forced myself not to step back, not to show the fear crawling up my spine. If you have a problem with his choices, take it up with him. I'm taking it up with you. Because you're smart enough to see what's happening. You've sat in those meetings. You've watched how this world works. You know sentiment gets people killed. Then maybe you should trust that he knows what he's doing. Vincent studied me for a long moment, then smiled, cold and professional. Of course. You're absolutely right. Forgive me for overstepping. He left without another word, his footsteps echoing down the hall. I stood alone in the dining room, heart pounding, instinct screaming that something had just shifted. Something dangerous. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying the conversation, the way Vincent had looked at me, not with anger, but calculation. Like he was solving a problem. At 2 a.m., I heard voices in the hallway outside my room. Low, urgent. I crept to the door and pressed my ear against the wood. Confirmed it's her. Isabella's daughter. She's been at the estate for 12 days. Vincent's voice. And Trevisani? A second voice I didn't recognize. Rougher accented. Distracted. Vulnerable. He's spread his resources thin trying to protect her. Security has gaps we haven't seen in years. The Moretti family will want confirmation. I'm sending photographs tonight. Once they verify her identity, they'll move. The girl is leverage Trevisani will pay anything to protect. Silence. Then the second voice, colder, and if he doesn't pay, then the Morettis take what's theirs. Either way, this ends the Trevisani advantage. Either he bankrupts himself protecting her, or he loses her and falls apart. I've watched him for 15 years, he doesn't recover from loss. He never recovered from losing Isabella. He won't survive losing the daughter. You're certain about this? I'm certain he's chosen her over the organization. And that makes him a liability. Vincent's voice dropped. I've given my life to building this empire. I won't watch him destroy it over sentiment. Footsteps moved away. I stood frozen, hand pressed against the door, blood roaring in my ears. Vincent had betrayed us. Was betraying us. Right now, while Gerardo handled business at the docks, his most trusted man was selling me to enemies I didn't even know existed. I had to tell him. Had to warn him. I grabbed my phone from the nightstand, the the one they'd returned after the first week, and pulled up Gerardo's contact. My finger hovered over the call button, then stopped. What if Vincent was monitoring communications? What if calling Gerardo tipped him off that I'd overheard? What if that made him accelerate whatever plan he'd already set in motion? I needed proof. Needed something concrete. I changed into dark clothes, pulled my hair back, and slipped into the hallway. Empty. The guards rotated shifts at 2:30. I'd learned the pattern from watching. I had a 15-minute window. Vincent's office was on the first floor, East Wing. I'd seen him enter it a dozen times, always locking the door behind him. I made it down 2 flights of stairs without encountering anyone. The house settled around me, all shadow and silence. When I reached the East Wing, I pressed myself against the wall, listening. Nothing. Vincent's door was closed but not locked arrogant, or maybe he'd left in a hurry. I slipped inside. The office was neat, organized, dominated by a desk and filing cabinets. I went straight for the desk, pulling open drawers with shaking hands. 3rd drawer down, I found it, a burner phone, the kind that couldn't be traced. I powered it on, scrolling through recent messages. Package confirmed. Location verified. Moving forward with extraction Thursday night. Payment as discussed. The response, Moretti family confirms. Trevisani's daughter worth $5 million to us. Dead or alive. Dead or alive. The phone nearly slipped from my hands. I took photos of the messages with my phone, then powered down the burner and replaced it exactly as I'd found it. When I turned to leave, Vincent stood in the doorway. Well, he said quietly, closing the door behind him. This complicates things. Vincent locked the door behind him with a soft click that sounded like a gunshot in the silent office. We stood 10 feet apart, the desk between us, both of us calculating our next move. You're smarter than I gave you credit for, he said, pocketing the key. Most people would have run straight to Daddy. But you came looking for proof first. Strategic thinking. Isabella would be proud. Don't talk about my mother. Why not? She was brilliant. Saw the writing on the wall before anyone else did. Knew Gerardo's sentimentality would eventually destroy him. Vincent moved toward the desk, casual, unhurried. She tried to save him by leaving. Ironic that her daughter is what finally finishes the job. My hand tightened around my phone in my pocket, the evidence burning against my palm. He'll kill you for this. He'll try. If he finds out. If you tell him. Vincent tilted his head, studying me like I was a problem with multiple solutions. But you're not going to tell him. Because if you do, you'll start a war inside this organization that will get people killed. People you've met. People who've shown you kindness. You mean people who'll choose sides. Your side or his. I mean people who understand that Gerardo Trevisani has become a liability. He's lost his edge. And in this world, that's a death sentence. He leaned against the desk. I'm trying to save this organization. The empire we built together. I'm trying to save him from himself. By selling me to his enemies? By removing the distraction that's compromising his judgment. Once you're gone, he'll refocus. Remember what's important. Or he'll fall apart completely, and someone stronger will take his place. Vincent shrugged. Either way, the organization survives. That's all that matters. I matter. My grandmother matters. Your collateral damage. Unfortunate, but necessary. He pushed off the desk, moving closer. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to give me that phone. Then you're going to go back to your room and pretend this conversation never happened. Thursday night, you'll be taken. Gerardo will be given an opportunity to pay for your return. Whether he does or doesn't is his choice. And if I scream right now, if I bring every guard in this house running, then I tell them I found you going through my private files, stealing information to sell to the highest bidder. Your word against mine. And I've been here 15 years. You've been here 12 days. His smile was cold. Who do you think they'll believe? He was right. And he knew it. The calculation showed in his eyes he'd already wargamed every scenario, every outcome. But he'd made one mistake. He'd underestimated what I'd learned in those conference rooms. How to read people. How to find leverage. How to survive. You're wrong about one thing, I said, pulling my hand from my pocket empty. I'm not my mother. I didn't run from this world. I walked straight into it. And I've been paying attention. Vincent's expression flickered. Uncertainty, just for a second. The man you've been messaging, the Moretti contact. He's using a number registered to a shell corporation in Delaware. That corporation is flagged by the FBI for racketeering, which means your communications are likely under surveillance. I took a step closer. You're not just betraying Gerardo. You're exposing the entire organization to federal investigation. His face went pale. I saw the financial reports last week. The ones you didn't think I understood. You've been skimming. Not much, just enough to fund an exit strategy. Offshore accounts in the Caymans. A property in Costa Rica under your sister's name. I paused. Gerardo doesn't know. But I could tell him. Right now. One call. You're bluffing. Am I? You said I was smart. Smart enough to see patterns. Smart enough to read people. I held his gaze. Smart enough to know you're planning to disappear the moment this deal goes through. Let the Morettis take me, let Gerardo destroy himself trying to get me back, and you vanish with your retirement fund while everyone else burns. Vincent's hand moved toward his jacket, toward a weapon I couldn't see but knew was there. I wouldn't. My voice was steady despite my racing heart. I sent copies of your messages to 3 different email accounts with instructions to forward them to Gerardo if I don't check in every 6 hours. You kill me, he finds out. You lock me up, he finds out. The only way you walk away from this is if I stay quiet. Why would you stay quiet? Because you're going to call off the Morettis. Tonight. Tell them the information was bad, that I'm not who you thought, that it's not worth the risk. I pulled out my phone, the real one. And then you're going to leave. Not Thursday. Not next week. Tomorrow. Take your offshore money and disappear. Retire to Costa Rica. Live out your days on a beach somewhere far from here. And if I refuse? Then I tell Gerardo everything. And you know exactly what he does to people who betray him. You've cleaned up enough of those messes. I stepped closer, close enough to see the calculation in his eyes. 15 years of loyalty won't save you. Not from this. Not when it involves me. Silence stretched between us, heavy and dangerous. Vincent's jaw worked. His hand stayed near his jacket. For a moment, I thought I'd miscalculated. Thought he'd decide killing me was worth the risk. Then he laughed, bitter and sharp. You really are his daughter. Is that a yes? He pulled out his burner phone, fingers moving across the screen. After a moment, he showed me the message. Information compromised. Operation cancelled. Destroying all records. Going dark. He hit send. There. Done. He pocketed the phone. But if you think this saves him, you're wrong. There are others like me. Others who see what you're doing to him. Others who'll act. Then I'll deal with them too. With what? Clever observations and lucky guesses. Vincent moved toward the door, unlocking it. You're playing in a world you don't understand, little girl. Eventually, you'll make a mistake. And when you do, there won't be anyone to save you. Maybe, but it won't be who takes advantage of it. He paused in the doorway, looking back. He's going to get you killed. You know that, right? All this protection, all this power, it's just a bigger target. Your mother understood that. She chose life over luxury. My mother chose fear over family. I'm choosing differently. Vincent shook his head. Then you're a fool. Just like him. He left, footsteps fading down the hallway. I stood alone in his office, adrenaline finally crashing, legs shaking so badly I had to grip the desk to stay upright. I'd just blackmailed a Mafia captain. Threatened a man who'd killed for less. Gambled my life on a bluff backed by pattern recognition and educated guesses. And somehow, impossibly, it had worked. I waited 5 minutes, then slipped back into the hallway. The house was still quiet, still sleeping, unaware of the war that had just been fought and won in Vincent's office. When I reached my room, I locked the door and sat on the bed, phone clutched in shaking hands. I pulled up Gerardo's contact again. This time, I hit call. He answered on the first ring. Angela? What's wrong? I need to see you. Now. It's about Vincent. Silence. Then, I'm 10 minutes away. Don't leave your room. Don't open the door for anyone but me. The line went dead. I sat in the darkness, waiting, understanding with crystalline clarity that I'd just crossed a line. I wasn't just surviving this world anymore. I was fighting in it, making moves, taking sides, becoming exactly what my mother had died trying to prevent. When Gerardo's footsteps sounded in the hallway 9 minutes later, rapid and urgent, I opened the door to find him flanked by 4 guards, his expression carved from stone. "Tell me," he said. So I did. And as I watched his face shift from concern to rage to cold calculation, I realized Vincent had been right about one thing. I really was Gerardo's daughter. For better or worse. Would you have bluffed your way out or run to the nearest exit? Tell me what you'd do in the comments. The sun rose over the city like a wound opening, bleeding red and gold across the skyline. I'd been awake for 36 hours straight, but exhaustion felt distant, muted by adrenaline and the weight of what the last 2 days had brought. Vincent was gone. Not dead. Gerardo had been clear about that. He served me for 15 years. That earns him his life, but nothing else. Vincent had left with the clothes on his back and 12 hours to disappear. His offshore accounts had been seized, his property in Costa Rica claimed, his network of contacts dismantled with surgical precision. By the time the sun set yesterday, it was like he'd never existed. 3 other captains had been identified, men who'd shared Vincent's concerns, who'd been quietly building a case for removing Gerardo from power. They were given the same choice: leave and live, or stay and face consequences. All 3 chose to leave. The purge had been swift, efficient, and surprisingly bloodless. I'd watched from the conference room as Gerardo methodically restructured his entire operation, promoting loyalists, redistributing territories, closing gaps that Vincent's betrayal had exposed. He moved like a chess master, each decision calculated to strengthen what remained. And through it all, I'd sat beside him. Not just observing anymore. Advising. The younger Ricci brother, I'd said during one discussion. He's ambitious, but loyal. He could handle the Eastern Territory. Gerardo had studied me, then nodded. Make it happen. Just like that. My word carrying weight. My judgment trusted. Now, as dawn broke over the estate, Gerardo found me on the 3rd-floor balcony where I'd been standing for the past hour, watching the city wake up. He carried 2 cups of coffee, steam rising into the cold morning air. "You should sleep," he said, handing me one. "So should you. I'll sleep when I'm dead." He leaned against the railing beside me, both of us looking out over the city that stretched to the horizon, thousands of buildings, millions of lives, all of it connected to the empire we'd just fought to preserve. "How are you feeling?" "Like I just burned down my old life and I'm standing in the ashes trying to figure out what comes next." He nodded slowly. "That's accurate." We drank our coffee in silence, watching the sunrise paint the windows of distant skyscrapers in shades of amber and rose. Somewhere out there was my old apartment, my old neighborhood, my old life of double shifts and unpaid bills and simple, uncomplicated survival. I couldn't go back to it, even if I wanted to. That girl who'd found a wallet in the rain didn't exist anymore. "Your grandmother asked about you this morning," Gerardo said. "She wanted to know if you were safe." "What did you tell her?" "That you were with me. That you always would be." He glanced at me. "She said your mother would be proud. Then she hit me with her cane and told me if I got you killed, she'd haunt me for eternity." Despite everything, I smiled. That sounds like her. She's tougher than she looks. It's a family trait, apparently. Gerardo's expression softened. "You handled Vincent better than most of my captains would have." Reading him, finding his pressure points, negotiating terms, that took skill. And courage. It took desperation. I didn't have a choice. You always have a choice. You chose to fight instead of run. You chose to protect this family instead of saving yourself. He set down his coffee cup. That means something. It means I'm just like you. No. His voice was firm. It means you're better than me. I built this empire on fear and violence. You're building your place in it with intelligence and strategy. You see patterns I miss. You read people I've known for years and find truths I overlooked. He turned to face me fully. You're not just my daughter, Angela. You're my successor. The word landed like a stone dropped in still water, ripples spreading outward. I don't want what you want, and what you're capable of are different things. I learned that the hard way. He gestured at the city. This world doesn't care what we want. It only cares what we can take and what we can hold. And you, he paused, choosing his words carefully. You have the instinct for both. I looked down at my hands, wrapped around the coffee cup. 3 weeks ago, these hands had served coffee and stocked shelves and counted tips with desperate precision. Now they'd negotiated with a traitor, restructured criminal operations, and helped dismantle a conspiracy from the inside. My mother didn't want this for me. Your mother wanted you safe. And now you are. Because you made yourself essential. Because you proved you belong here. Gerardo's hand rested on my shoulder, heavy and warm. She ran because she was afraid. You're staying because you're strong. There's no shame in either choice, but only one of them survives in this world. I met his eyes, cut glass gray, the same shade I saw in the mirror now when I looked closely enough. And if I want to change things? Make this empire something other than fear and violence. Then you'll have your chance. When I'm gone, this is yours. All of it. And what you make of it, that's your choice to make. The sun had fully risen now, burning away the last shadows, illuminating the city in harsh, clear light. Somewhere down there, people were starting their days with no idea that the girl who used to serve them coffee now stood on a balcony planning the future of a criminal empire. The Moretti family will come eventually, I said. Vincent told them about me. Even with him gone, they'll remember. Let them come. We'll be ready. And the FBI investigation Vincent mentioned, the one tracking his communications? Already handled. Our attorneys are very good at making problems disappear. And the families who supported Vincent's play for power? Watching. Waiting to see what we do next. Whether we're stronger or weaker for the purge. Gerardo smiled, sharp and cold. We'll show them stronger. I drank the last of my coffee, the bitterness cutting through exhaustion. I need to see my grandmother. Tell her I'm okay. She's in the garden. She's been waiting for you. I turned to go, then stopped. Gerardo. Yes. Thank you. For not lying to me. For showing me those photographs, that letter. For letting me see who you really are. His expression softened in a way I'd rarely seen. Thank you for giving me a second chance to be your father. Even if I don't deserve it. We don't get to choose our blood. We only get to choose what we do with it. He recognized his own words thrown back at him and almost smiled. Your mother used to say something similar. She said we're all born into stories we didn't write. The only power we have is how we finish them. How do you think she'd want the story to end? With you alive. With you strong. With you choosing your own path, even if it's one she feared. He looked back at the city. She'd hate that you're here. But she'd be proud of how you've survived it. I left him on the balcony, a solitary figure silhouetted against the rising sun, and made my way down to the gardens where my grandmother was waiting. She sat on a bench under a flowering tree, wrapped in a shawl despite the warming morning, looking smaller and older than I remembered. When she saw me, her face crumpled with relief. Angela. I sat beside her and she pulled me into her arms the way she had when I was small, when the world was simple and safe and made sense. I'm okay, Grandma. I promise. I'm okay. You're not okay. You're different. She pulled back, studying my face with eyes that had seen too much, that had watched her daughter flee this life and die trying to escape it. You've made your choice. I had to. I know. She touched my face gently. Your mother made hers. Now you've made yours. I just hope yours ends differently. It will. I'll make sure of it. She nodded, not entirely convinced, but accepting. Then I'll stay. As long as you need me. As long as I can protect you from becoming something you're not. What if I already am? She smiled sadly. Then I'll love you anyway. That's what family does. We sat together in the garden as the city woke around us, grandmother and granddaughter, surrounded by wealth and danger and the complicated legacy of choices made before I was born. Above us, on the balcony, Gerardo Trevisani watched over his empire. And beside him, invisible but present, was the space I would one day fill. The girl who found a wallet had become the heir to a kingdom built on shadows. And somehow, impossibly, I was ready for it. Thank you for listening until the very end. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share the story. There's another story like the one you just enjoyed on your left screen.